we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. I see some of you have been here before. I'm Shauna Lawson, the Assistant Director of Alumni Relations and Annual Giving at UW-Tacoma. It's our pleasure that you're here. Thanks for joining us at our virtual alumni speaker series. We'll get started with our Share the Land acknowledgement. We recognize that all of us at UW-Tacoma learn, live, and work on or near the ancestral homeland of the Coast Salish people. In particular, we are situated on the traditional territory of the Puyallup. As people on this occupied territory, we have a responsibility to acknowledge the land, the ancestors who have cared for this land since time immemorial, and all our indigenous connections today. We also have the responsibility to acknowledge the histories of dispossession and forced removal that have allowed for the growth and survival of this institution. In light of this history, let us take active efforts to partner with our indigenous community members and neighbors as we continue our work together as a community of learners, leaders, and educators. We do ask that you remain muted during the interview portion. After the interview, if there is time, we will take questions via the chat, or you may come off of mute. If you are experiencing technical difficulties, please note it in the chat and we will assist. I'll now turn this over to our interviewer, Nick Brooks, our student from the School of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences and the School of Urban Studies. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you so much, Shauna. I want to thank you all for joining us. So as she said, I am a student of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences and the School of Urban Studies, and I have the pleasure this evening of interviewing one of our alumni, the Michael Jordan. So just to give you a little bit about him, Michael is a consultant focused on helping close the economic wealth gap for Black people. He does this through business consulting, DEAI work, and equitable economic initiatives. He is working with BIPOC businesses in process development, helping organizations to be purposely equitable and helping them take meaningful steps. He's involved with several community groups in Tacoma and Pierce County. This includes Tacoma Pierce County Black Collective, Pierce County Community Engagement Task Force, and Two-Way Racial Healing Project. He is in Class 28 American Leadership Forum. He spent most of 2021 directing the BIPOC engagement work stream of a Mindful State project. Clarity Consulting teamed with Economic Business Development Board, Clarity Consulting teamed with Economic Development Board, Tacoma Pierce County to put the first BIPOC Business Executive Roundtable in late October. So Michael lives in Puyallup, Washington, with his 3 daughters, and his hobbies include dancing, photography, cooking, playing and writing music, and other adventuresome activities, maybe basketball, maybe not. He is also working on the first phase of the Black Gold Project, which is a platform for the African diaspora's emotional, cultural, and economic healing. So this is the Michael Jordan. And so we'll get the interview started. And I'll start by asking him, Michael, can you please tell us about the work that you do in consulting?
Thank you for the question, Nick. It's good to be here. Thanks for the introduction. The work that I do in consulting is primarily focused on 2 areas. One is supporting Black excellence. And then the second, you could say, is helping other organizations that can use assistance with policy development or adjusting their culture or practices, take looks at how what they have is impacting the people of color that are working with them, and see ways to look deeper at the policy and make changes that are meaningful. I call it, oh, my iPad is dying. I call it with the businesses, I say I teach them how to cook. And it's not literally teaching how to cook, but if anybody does cook, you know, there's people that can do recipes and there's people that can cook. If you don't have a recipe, but you understand what the end goal is going to be, you can put things together in a way that's functional and appetizing. But if you only have recipes, then you're kind of just stuck without any direction. So I try to give them the overall picture and the understanding of the principles they need to reach success. And then with businesses, like I said before, just helping them take deeper looks at their policies. I noticed that there's a lot of, I'll say, principles I learned working in business and going through the programs at UWT, things like, now that I'm trying to think of them, they call it the 5 whys, or root cause analysis. Not many people do that with looking at racist policies or policies that could be systemically damaging. They'll look at the surface level and they won't keep asking questions, why about further stuff. So I help people get to that place, and it's meaningful, and I think it's going to change the world for the better.
Well, all right. So what would you say that you do in your business consultant capacity?
I'll say in the consulting capacity, like I shared before, just helping people find their blind spots, see the places where they are, where they want to be, and help them bridge those gaps. I've recently been digging into Scrum project management style. It's a more iterative process, and it brings solutions to the challenge more quickly, instead of doing the whole project saying, I'm a genius, I gave you these things to follow, and then when we get to the end, we'll go over all the issues we had. It does it step by step through the process, and it focuses on getting people to a usable product or outcome or service in shorter time periods, and then building on that as they go. So bringing that method, and I would say mediation style, helps bring in cohesiveness, and it takes it from a super leader to a cohesive team-based project. And working with that with businesses and Black-owned businesses is where it's my jam.
Okay, so when you're working with the businesses, what would you say that maybe your biggest challenge is, or if not your biggest challenge, what are some of the challenges that you face, and what surprises you most about this area of work?
I'll say initially what surprised me most was first looking at it as a business owner myself. Like, a lot of the stuff that I help people with are challenges I faced, and some realizations that took me a while to understand. One of them is really well, I'll say, documented, and there's a series called Racism in the Economy, and it's put on by the Federal Reserve Banks. And there's a series called Entrepreneurism. And one of the things they talked about is generally each group, whatever group you come from, also represents the group you generally serve, or the group you generally go to forced to provide services. And if your group is economically depressed, it's going to be difficult to charge rates that are helping you to survive, that they can actually afford. So a lot of times you can price yourself out of serving the community you care about, because you have to survive, and your community can't meet those price points that you have. So a lot of businesses will be lowering their prices just to make sure that they're serving their community, but that's part of their bigger struggle. So when I started to see that pattern, it made me take a step back and look at the bigger system and see where changes could be made or policy could be impactful. I didn't expect it. I thought, well, if I'm really good at this and people see I'm really good, they'll pay me for what I am able to produce or take care of. But it's not automatically the case. You have to be able to get into the markets, and that access can be tenuous, I'll say.
Okay, so just a follow-up to that. I know you said that it's hard to serve an economically depressed community.
Mhm.
What are some ways that you see around that?
Recently I was able to put on a roundtable with it's in the thing with Economic Development Board, and we brought in a bunch of businesses and asked them all that same question. The number one answer was provide low cost access to capital. Part of the challenge in another series in the Racism in the Economy series was the wealth gap. And one of the author of the book, The Color of Money, Mercer Baradran, shared that Black people are the only people that actually participate in capitalism because we do business without any support from the government. There's many businesses that start and will say, oh, I have this skill set or I have this ability, and then they think that they're going to kind of bootstrap it. They're going to work hard, they're going to have a quality product, and they're going to get enough volume to save up to get the next thing to develop. But most businesses start with capital at the beginning, and that takes care of those startup costs. It takes care of those different things that allow them to focus on the process of the business. And so the number one thing, like I said, was access to capital. Often it's been that they'll offer business training or technical assistance, or will help you do your business plan, but money is actually the answer. So that's what when I have the opportunity, I speak up about it and share that that's the thing that's needed. There's people on the call that were able to be in the roundtable, and I think Casey Woods is here from Equity in Contracting for City of Tacoma. So it's good to see her. I know she's one of the people in that fight to make that a possibility. I feel like the answers it. Is there anything more I can share?
If it's interesting to hear your point and your approach. So you could share all day. I'd be all ears. But okay, I'll move to the next question. All right. Okay, knowing that you could have been,
I said second quarter.
We'll move to the second quarter.
Michael Jordan, basketball. Yeah.
Knowing that you could have been a basketball player, why did you decide to get into business consulting?
I had the drive, I had the determination, I had the athleticism, and at the end of the day, some of my thoughts are what can make the biggest impact. Like I could be the greatest in the planet. I could be the real Michael Jordan, the one that they said he was my predecessor, and I showed them how the game was really played. But I figured I could impact the world outside of basketball and directly serve my community. Once I started to see some of the patterns and historical patterns and century-long patterns affecting us, I was like, basketball consulting. No, the actual story is I I had finished my degree. When I went back to UW was after working as a polysomnographic technologist for about 8 years. The career field started to change, so it was a who moved my cheese situation. I was gonna go to international business, so I was doing a year of prerequisites to get into the course. I had graduated from Pierce College, Laurie Griffin, and then gone into the career, worked there. And then when I got out, when I started back, one of the first classes I took was microeconomics. I learned a lot there. I learned this is the why of business, if you will. A lot of people go to finance or marketing or branding or different things, but the core of it comes to what is this business doing? How is it doing it? And break-even analysis, that type of stuff. So after completing my degree and working at this interpreting agency, I was hired there for two things. One was just to help with their connection to contracting, which I had never done or seen, but I had the background for it. And the other was kind of to help them with their business processes. And in that time, I heard people talking about consultants and what they do and how much they can make an hour. And I was like, that's my economic training kicks in and says, I could do this, or for this, I could do that and impact more. So that was kind of the spark to it. I would say going through those econ courses and seeing the possibilities that are out there that are different than traditionally sports or the arts. Because I went to school at Pierce College. I was going to be a jazz trumpet player at the time. So I would have went down that music path we might get into later, how that's tied to my personality as well. But yes, and then I've always been kind of a puzzle person. So I like word searches. I don't like crossword puzzles. I don't know why. They're just like, but word searches, finding things, looking outside the box and finding solutions that other people are overlooking. And having been kind of outside the box, in the outside the box culture, I could see solutions that other people weren't looking for because I could see problems that they weren't looking for. So when all that kind of tied together, consulting was like the obvious choice. But I did do photography also for a while. So that's also a puzzle problem solving type situation.
Okay, so we'll talk a little about photography in a little bit,
Mm-hmm,
but what I do want to ask for all your fellow Huskies watching and this Husky here, there was a lot of schools you could have chose. Why did you go to UW-Tacoma?
I went to UW-Tacoma, I don't know, because I had been a fan of the Huskies growing up. Secondly, proximity, thirdly, prestige, and then fourth, they accepted the transfer degree that I had. So I knew it was a legitimate school. I've learned since how well respected it is as an institution of learning. So I felt it was worth my time and they would have quality teaching there. And I found it to be true.
Okay, so the Black Gold Project that I talked about earlier was the platform for the African diaspora's emotional, cultural, and economic healing. So as a photographer, what are you doing with that project?
Well, it all started with me scrolling through Instagram. Well, I can't say with scrolling through Instagram, but the spark was there. I was scrolling through, looking, you see different stuff pop up based on interest, and a Black model showed up and she had gold leaf like all around her face. It was like everything here just looked like gold. And I was like, oh, that is amazing. That's beautiful. I was like, I want to do something like that. I was like, oh, I could do something where we find out people's origins in Africa, and then we get the country shape outline, and then we take pictures, and it's cool. And I was like, but I want it to be deeper than that. I was like, we need to hear the stories of these women, hear how they're going through life, and then pull that all together. And then I was like, but I want to be deeper. Like my problem is I keep trying to go deeper, deeper, deeper. So what it ended up being was I decided, also looking at that, I have 3 daughters. I'm not married anymore, but when I got married, I had 2 instant daughters and then had one more after that. They're 16, 14, and 8 currently. And when my youngest was born, I remember holding her and I'll say flashing forward through her life and all the stuff that she's gonna have to go through as a woman of color. And it hit me just like it was bad enough for myself, but being a woman, you're in a more vulnerable position, I believe, because the world is what it is. So that kind of stayed with me when I had this project. I was like, hey, my daughters need to hear from people who have lived the life that they're going to walk through and see what and how they made it through it, and see that they're not crazy when they're having these problems that other people don't seem to recognize or understand. So they need aunties and grandmas and sisters and neighbors that can pour into them from their own life experience. And then I was like, well, it should be past just my daughters. So I worked to then, this is a long answer, but this project is like it's a big thing. It's going to be something I'm working on forever. So I decided I would do interviews and just ask the women, like, what is their experience in a space where nobody's saying, are you sure it was racism? Are you sure it was this? Are you sure this is what happened to you? Do you really know what you're experiencing in your body, in your context? They wouldn't have that. They would just be able to share and really get out some of the things that's been going on with them. So I was able to do kind of 2 short interviews, one with a person I met through modeling, and then another with my sister. And as time is moving forward, I'm just scheduling and piecing it together as it can be. Then that, of course, expanded into, it started out as Sister. So that's the Black women sharing their experience and then creating a library where they can go and explore and share what each other's stories have been and see how amazing every single Black woman is. Then I had Brother, because we have our issues too. We need to talk about them and confront some of those things that are challenges, and talk about some of those things that are unique to our experience. And then I had 3 more categories: rhythm, which is looking into music; food, which is looking into food, like soul food. Like I remember being in Brazil, not in Brazil, a Brazilian restaurant in Seattle, tasting their beef and like red or black beans and rice, and being like, why does this taste like my grandma's food who grew up in Florida? But it's Black people. Like, all that stuff to me was it was things I in my life exploring, like what it means to be Black and what it means to be here and what it means to have all this experience in history. Those are things I wanted to kind of connect and help people see, like, how amazing we are and how we kept stuff over hundreds of years of trying to have it erased out of us. So, and then the last thing was called Roots and Bridges. And with that, the plan was finding people here doing their, like, there's a company called African Ancestry that they can find your actual tribe and region that you're from. I was able to find my dad did his, and we found out that my dad's from Burkina Faso and my mom is from Guinea-Bissau, and his people are the Bissa people and her people are the Fula. So that's something, I don't know if people here know, but most Black people can't say past maybe their great grandparents what their lineage is, and let alone where they come from on the actual continent. So what the plan was, have people do the tests here, find out where they're from, and then find somebody from that country or from that group that's in the United States, bring them together and just have them talk. And I don't think that's ever been done. So this is the intellectual property is being recorded here, that I came up with this idea just for perpetuity, copyright current. But yeah, that's the project. It's going to be videos and a library of that stuff. The core goals of the project are knowing our worth, connecting with our culture, and healing from our trauma, because those are things that were not offered or given, and I feel like they're central to us becoming the most that we can for each person in the diaspora, from charcoal to honey or whatever color. Like, it's all part, wherever you are and whatever you mix you have. If you have ancestry from Africa, you're excluded or set as other. So everybody needs a place, and the Black Gold Project is hoping to be that in some senses. Also, I'm trying to do like a virtual Wakanda, what's it called? I guess you could say Green Book slash, I have it in my head, and now that I'm trying to think of it's gone, but slash Black Wall Street. So a list of businesses that are Black owned. Also, we have a section for invited to the cookout. So allies and other people and spaces that make spaces safe and are aware of the challenges and are working to change things are also to be added to the list, because Black people need to know where it's safe. People of color need to know where it's safe, and it's not always safe.
That's
So
beautiful.
it's a lot, but yeah, that's
Okay,
as short as I can make it.
so speaking of a cookout, so
Mhm.
we're gonna have your UW cookout, and
Okay.
I'd like to know, what are some of the professors and mentors that added to your life experience, rather in UW or out, and that you want at your cookout?
Okay, people at my cookout. One of them is on here. Lisa Hoffman will be there. I'll say her first because she's here. She was super helpful and supportive when I went to the main office and there were some bureaucratic challenges. I was in an internship going to JBLM. I was in charge of sending or scheduling and setting up appointments for exiting service members to see the opportunities at different places. And there's the UW Veterans Business Incubator, and the person who was in charge of it was like, yeah, we'll do this. And then he wasn't there like for 3 days or something like that. And so when I went to the office, like, hey, I just need to get a key because he already agreed to this, and it's scheduled, it's set. And they're like, well, we don't know you, and he's not here, so you should have come 2 weeks ago to try to get this going. And I was like, but I sent an email to what is her name? The person who was over, I can't think of her name now, but she was over the ACAP program at the time. She reached out to Lisa. And then the next day when I showed up I was like, I'm just going to show up. I'm on the bus full of service members. Hopefully we can at least walk by the center. I get off the bus and somebody's like, hey, Mr. Jordan, so good to see you. So glad that you're here. Working, like we have a tour ready and we have people. And I was like, okay, Professor Hoffman. Now she's Dean Hoffman, I believe. But she came through. She shook the branches and got things going. So it was amazing. Also, she was encouraging. I remember she said, "You're gonna be successful." She said, "I can tell already that you're gonna find your way." And that's not me making this. Literally what she said when I was talking to her, and we hadn't spent hours talking or anything. She just saw me, so I really appreciated that. Next, I would say Professor Douglas Wills. He's a person that got me to ask some interesting questions about the whys of what I'm choosing. I remember him being somewhat of a rebel. I don't know if he's still on that streak. He used to he used to ask us questions in class like, why are you taking the degree you're taking? One of the questions, it blew my mind. He's like, why should I be a good professor? And I was like, because you're working here, like it's your job to do. He's like, no, I get paid for my research. He's like, why should I do a good job at this? And we're like, because you're a professor. He's like, that's something you should always ask wherever you are. Why is this person doing what they're doing? Yeah. He's like, because there can always be other motives or always other things. And it's wise to look at that. He's one of the first people that I heard talk about lifetime earnings and comparisons between careers and career path choices. He said, take as much math as you can. And you're not just going to get this by showing up to class. You have to work through it. His class was probably the hardest class I've taken. I'll say intellectually is the intermediate microeconomics. He told us before class one time, he's like, we were having trouble because people kept failing my class. And I was like, oh God. He said, I sat with the calculus professors and said, okay, this is the material we're going to teach. This is what you need to prep your students for. The calculus professors prep their students. They all passed. They took his class, took the first test, and nobody passed the test. And I was like, Jesus, like what is going on? And he's like, this is a different class. He's like, you can't just get it by coming in and saying, oh, I got this formula. You have to really know. I would say my algebra skills, you think, okay, I've already done calculus. I've already done all this different stuff to get into this course. how much better could I be at algebra? But he was like, everything is algebra. There's two knowns and an unknown. You got to figure out what the unknown is, and whatever level you're at, that's the thing. So he showed us that. And another thing he would do was, I felt it was genius. He would show us how much we didn't know, but he wouldn't do it in a way that she's like, you're stupid. He would just be like, okay, we're going to switch. We're going to adjust. And so anytime we couldn't get what he was presenting, he would adjust his presentation. He would adjust it. He would adjust it. And also he would let us know we were coming into it with the wrong preconceived notions. And that would get us off of our, oh, I understand this graph. I remember the first class, he's like, what do you think this graph would look like? And everybody had ideas. Nobody was close. So we just had to sit and listen. So that's another professor. And then professor, I have his, I never call, I don't think I ever said his name to him, but Turan Kayoglu, I think I said it right. I apologize if I didn't, but his class was, I believe I was in the international politics course with him, and he was the first person I heard say monopoly of violence, and in talking about how things happen with governments and different, wherever people are, it was a different concept than I had been used to seeing, and it's impacted how I approach a lot of stuff. And I was like, stuff like police violence and brutality, different things like that, it ties. But I will shorten this. There's a lot I could say, and we only have so much time.
Very true, very true. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a DeLorean time travel. You can go back in time and do it all over again. What would you do the same? What would you do differently? Is there a class you wish you would have taken, paid more attention in? Student groups or activities maybe you didn't do? What are you doing? What year are we going to? What are you wearing? No, don't answer that. Just tell me about what you would do differently.
We're going to 2012. My wardrobe is reflective of my cash flow. So it's pretty simple at the time, and it's enough. The things I would do differently, I would say I would have been part of more of the BSU events and meetings. I went to like maybe 3 during that time, but in my classes, I was usually one of 2 or 3, maybe Black people. And, but growing up in Tacoma, you kind of get used to that. So understanding the connection, the support you can get from other students that are experiencing some things you may be experiencing, but it's difficult to voice with people who don't have the same experience, would have been helpful. But other than that, I couldn't really change anything. If I could change, I had $1 million in the bank so I could really spend the time I wanted to studying. Yeah, that would be it. But I would also change connecting more with classmates and ensuring I have a good network coming out, and also keeping the contact information with professors to get information and wisdom and guidance, because they've been down that path already, and they have things and connections, and they can see stuff. Like I spent time teaching after, and I was like, you can see the students that are really trying, you can see the students that are coasting, you can see the students that don't care. And when you see the ones trying, your heart goes out to them. And so any students that are there now, I would implore you, or invite you, as we say in ALF, to reach out to your professors and see the professor, not just the title, or for the person behind the title of professor. That's what I would do different.
So how did your experience at UW-Tacoma influence your career pursuits after graduation?
It totally impacted my experience at UW-Tacoma. Totally impacted my pursuits afterwards. Everything I did after had some relation to economics or policy. If I was substitute teaching, I was talking to my students about what I call the equation of life, which is really just the break-even analysis applied to personal finances, and talk to kids about how to make better choices on what they're doing after college based on knowing what things are going to cost them to live after college. If I was in a position somewhere, I was looking at how policy with interpreting or limited English proficiency people are impacted by settings at different places, or working at the Rise Center, looking how they connect with community, what outcomes are based on the programs that are in place, and how the design is related to all of it. So everywhere I went, kind of that economics bug or flow was with me, and it's impacted my perspective and how I dig in and try to find things out or understand things.
All right. So, okay, there are a lot of students, they get their degrees. What would you say to a student who's nervous about not working specifically in their field of study?
I would say what's important is that most important is that you got a degree, because that proves you can finish things. I think it's true, the more math and specific areas that you do at a higher level, it can impact your earning much more quickly. But also, I've never had anybody come to me in a professional space and say, hi, I'm going to use a person from the audience, for instance. Hi, my name is Malachi Fournier, is that right? And my degree is in rocket science. They haven't said that to me. They just said, hey, this is me, this is what I'm doing, this is what the job I'm going to do. So finish your degree, take the classes that are going to make an impact on how you approach your challenges, but don't worry about specifically staying within that lane if the money opportunity isn't there. The BA will carry weight, and it'll open some doors that just YouTube expertise won't. So that's what I'll say with that.
Okay. So tell us about owning your own business, and why did you decide to start the business?
I started my first business was photography when I was a polysomnographic technologist. I had extra days and I always wanted to go into business. I didn't have a specific knowledge, and I was like, what business should I do? And I'm taking pictures everywhere and going around, and people like, these are really nice. And then it finally clicked, I could do photography. And what I'll say is it changes your perspective on how your personal finances and life go. It also changes your perspective on what makes a difference. Like, there's a lot there. This could be a years long answer, but then after going into and graduating from UW, I remember literally being able to take stuff from my econ class and apply it to stuff I was doing with photography and make more money. And I was like, oh, this is how this works. I was like, this net present value, just different stuff that you can come across and you see in business books, but it's condensed in a course. My way of conducting business before and after changed, and I had a lot better idea of how to cook, I guess I could say, once I went through those econ courses and got information from teachers. Also, I say life experience paired with that, all those three things are kind of the magic sauce to let me know that I can look at things outside of specifically a career choice or a career path. The career could finance going into business, or it could be a supplement to staying in business. But there's options. It let me see that there's a capacity there. And I think I'll stop there because there's more questions. I don't want to go.
It's okay. You're doing great. You are doing wonderful. So quickly, let me ask, what are you doing during current event times to protect your mental health during COVID-19 and its impact?
Setting boundaries, playlists, The Office. It's kind of my favorite TV show because it's ridiculous. Also making sure to curate people who also understand the importance of boundaries, maintaining relationships with friends. I chose well with my hopeful life partner. I found someone that is also healthy and has those same things, and that helps too. When you can be vulnerable with people, and they have your best interests at heart. So I'll say from the inside out, with your circle of friends, with associates, acquaintances, just making sure that I'm curating by character, and that helps the environments to be positive most of the time. So then when I go out into the world and the pressure there is unbelievable, I can decompress with safe people. There's a few people from one of my groups, ALF, which has been amazing. Nick Bayard, Lori Griffin, Leslie was on here before. Or she's still here. Leslie Kincaid. We're all in a program that's, I think, is amazing, called ALF, and you get an unexpected support group there. So that has been a big part of it too. We actually have a meeting tomorrow, so I'm happy to see everybody and catch up. But I'll say relationships and music and comedy. Those are my kind of go-to things, and cooking, because if you can make delicious food, you can't keep from smiling.
Gotta teach them how to cook. Okay, I know that some folks want to do Q&A real quick. I'm just going to ask you one quick question, and try to make it as fast as you can. It's not fair, but what is one piece of advice you would give to current students?
I'm going to give two short pieces. One, hold on to your joy. It's vital. Nobody else can do that for you. I think of Robin Williams in Hook. He had to think happy thoughts so he could fly. And when he kept that to himself, when he kept it inside, he was able to do amazing things. Two is something my mom always says. She's a licensed mental health counselor and can see into people's souls, it seems like. But she says, don't personalize their dysfunction. That's something that helped me, because in business spaces or professional spaces, you will encounter people that are not functional, and it can feel personal, but they're functioning how they function. And when you can avoid personalizing it, you give yourself that space to you don't blame yourself, and it's easier to hold on to your joy when you're not trying to fight their dysfunction.
All right. Okay, so we'll open it up for Q&A and so what I'd like you to do, if you don't want to ask the question, you can put it in the chat and I'll ask it for you, or you can come off of mute and ask your question. And I don't want to do like we're in class and say raise your hand, but I'm tempted to say raise your hand, but just come off of mute and ask a question, and Michael will answer it, hopefully.
I have a question.
Okay.
So, Michael, it just so happens that it's Black History Month, and you've been talking a lot about the African diaspora, the projects that you're involved in the community. What does Black History Month mean to you?
I heard something from someone somewhat controversial. He said it's changing from Black History Month to Black Future Month. And what I thought about from that was, like they always say, if you don't know your past, you're doomed to repeat it. And being a musician and being a polysomnographic technologist, the strengths I needed there was recognizing patterns. And Black History Month is a specific time. It's almost like harvest for the world. You're like, okay, now people are listening. Let's get this stuff out there so we can kind of disrupt some of these patterns that we're seeing. So if anybody's ever followed my Facebook page, it's a mixture of dad jokes and kind of intense Black history stuff that helps me keep my balance. So for me, this month means kind of paying homage to the excellence that comes before me, the excellence that's happening currently, and the possibilities of the future, while working to actively disrupt those negative patterns.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Shauna.
Michael, thanks, Nick, for the prompt. I was about to put it in the chat and thought I'd just say it. Really wonderful presentation, and it's really inspiring. Much of what you said, I have two questions. One, I'm curious about how, what is your relationship with leadership? How do you see yourself in as a leader, and how does that manifest? And then a more kind of a different type of question. I'm really curious if you have specific ideas about enhancing the access to capital that you mentioned earlier.
I'm writing these down so I can answer right or well. For leadership, I'll say first, my life pattern seems to have been to work under challenging leaders and learn in a lot of places what not to do. I see how their things impact the teams and people working with them and for them, and then how that impacts outcomes and processes. And so I'm like, okay, this is make that whole checklist of what not to do. And then leading from a place of collaboration versus being like the kind of typical alpha of what they described way back when they did that study. Something I learned recently was they didn't share the context that these wolves were in captivity. And so that's why these alpha wolves are behaving this way, but wolves in the wild are much more of a group, and they have roles that are complementary. So having, I would say, a high emotional intelligence quotient that's built up and is purposeful, that impacts a leader's ability to actually create teams where people share what's actually going on. They have confrontation that is positive. A lot of things we're learning in ALF. You gotta have trust. You gotta have positive conflicts. You have to be able to talk about the real challenges and problems, or else there'll be a pattern of just going over it and not addressing or making headway, or getting stuck because nobody wants to say what really needs to be said. So as a leader, I try to make it safe for that stuff to be said. And yeah, that's that. I think that's as short as I can make it, but I could talk about that for an hour because I've been through some stuff. And then access to capital. I would say that along the lines of Lisa McGee's book, The Sum of Us, the realization that there's not when BIPOC people receive what's already been given to white folks as a whole for hundreds of years, that white people aren't losing out. It's a big block to, I think, some of the policy that could be created. There's I think it was between 1931 and 1960, they gave out $120 billion in loans through the what's it called? I can't think of it. I tried to bring up statistics I didn't write down. It's not a good thing. Through the New Deal. And 98% of that went to white families. There's billions of dollars out there that could be set aside at a low rate for investment or different things like that. But the access to it is governed by people who are not of the community. So if their mindsets don't change, however much money there is, their predispositions will govern the policy that's created versus it just being given out. I would say having people from the community, one of the things Jamad Conley said to me was nothing for us without us. So if we're creating these policies or pathways to the Capitol, and in the past we've given capital with little thought to how much it costs for building a white middle class. If we do the same thing for people of color, the dividends will show themselves quickly, because you'll see people that haven't had an opportunity to step up and take the chance and show what creative things they can do outside of the box. And I believe the understanding of the history is vital to that, for the people that are at those, I would say, gateways. Thank you for the questions.
Just let me know whenever you want to run for office.
Got
We've got a bunch of supporters right here.
Are there any other questions? I don't have anything in the chat, but I have a lot of questions I'd like to ask.
Okay.
And thank you, Leslie, for joining us. So if you could describe what UWT has meant to you in its entirety in a word or a phrase, can you tell me what that would be and why?
Good question. In a word or phrase, what UW has meant to me.
Do you have a clock in the background? Sound like you're being timed.
Yeah, I can see the clock up in the corner. I'm like, okay, it's almost 7. How do I make this one sentence? I would say, I'll say 3 words like we say in ALF. I'll say clarity, perspective, and knowledge. Those were things that, like, I feel like as you grow up, things become more clear. You get understanding that you didn't have before. There were perspective changes. Somebody said, if you want to change yourself, change your perspective, and you'll see things differently. You'll see there's more than what you thought to the world, or to situations, or to challenges, or to people. And then knowledge was the information. I had questions coming into the school, and I was able to find answers in many classes, and some classes just information that I just had to have to pass the degree. But there's a lot of things that have given me, I'll say like we're on a dark trail. Some of those things were flashlights that helped me navigate. And they're not gonna walk your path for you, but you can get some of the map cleared up. You can get some landmarkers. You can get some people who they'll share their location, and then you can navigate to them.
Right.
So yeah, what did I say? I think it's like clarity, perspective, and knowledge. Those are the 3 words.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Michael, for your time. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm going to turn this over to Shauna right now. And again, thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Michael, for this was a great presentation. And I really appreciate you guys coming on and doing this. And I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us. I do have some information for you I'm going to put in the chat. We have Tacoma Husky Landing, which is our career networking platform where students can connect with people in different industries, alumni, faculty, staff. So please join us there. I have put that in the chat for you. And then our next alumni speaker series will be on March the 10th. That'll be Women's History Month, as a matter of fact. But we have an alumna, Megan Eckert, who will be joining us, and she'll be the speaker. I wanted to thank everybody who gave or donated to the Black Opportunity Fund when you register for the event. And I just wanted to say, stay safe, And we will see you at the next one.